The morning sun filtered through the diner's large windows, illuminating the space with a soft, welcoming light. Emma, a young woman with brown hair tied into a messy bun, moved quickly between tables, always with a smile on her face. The smell of fresh coffee and toasted bread filled the air, mixing with the lively murmur of customers' conversations. She loved that place. The diner was more than just a job. It was a temporary home, a space where each client had a story, and Emma felt part of them all. "Hi, Mr. Jenkins. What do you want today?" she asked, leaning a little over the table of an elderly customer who was always sitting in the same place, near the window. Mr. Jenkins, in his fedora and thick-rimmed glasses, smiled when he saw her. "Ah, Emma dear, I'll have scrambled eggs and a strong coffee as always," he replied, his voice husky but full of affection. "A special order for a special customer." Emma blinked. She quickly turned around and began preparing the order, her heart warmed by the affection she received daily. As she stirred her coffee, she observed the other customers. There was the young mother with 2 small children, the group of friends laughing loudly, and, in the background, a man Emma recognized well, Tom. Tom was a homeless man who came into the diner a few times a week, always shabby, with a look that carried the weight of countless sadness. He sat in a corner, far from the hustle and bustle. Despite his unkempt appearance, there was something intriguing about him. Emma wasn't sure what drew her to his presence, but there was a connection that made her want to know more. "Hey Tom, can I get you some coffee?" Emma asked as she took Mr. Jenkins' order to his table. Tom looked up, surprised, and a slight smile appeared on his face. "A hot coffee would be great, Emma." "Thank you," he replied, his voice low and husky but with a hint of gratitude. As she prepared the coffee, Emma felt an urge to do more for him. She knew that Tom often didn't have money to eat, and the thought bothered her. With a simple gesture, he decided that whenever he could, he would bring him an extra snack. It was a small way to help, but to Emma, it meant a lot. "Do you remember when you said you used to work in an auto repair shop?" Emma asked, as she placed the coffee on Tom's desk. "Yes. Different times, that's for sure," he replied, looking out the window, where the rain was beginning to fall, creating small puddles on the ground. "Do you like fixing cars?" Emma continued, interested. She always felt like there was so much more to Tom than he let on. He looked at her, a little surprised, but then looked away again. "I liked it. It's what I did before. Well, all this. But now, I can only dream about it," Tom replied, his voice thick with nostalgia. Emma felt her heart sink when she heard his words. "Who knows? Maybe one day you can do it again. I believe there's still a bright future for you out there." Tom smiled, but his eyes still reflected a deep sadness. "I believe the future is a distant concept for me, but I appreciate your optimism, Emma. You are a good person." The rainy weather of the day seemed to intensify throughout the conversation, but Emma was so caught up in Tom's story that she didn't notice. The empathy she felt for him grew with each moment they spent together. It was as if an invisible thread united them, a bond made of understanding and compassion. "If you want, I can help you find a place to stay. There are lots of resources in town for people like you," Emma suggested, trying to be practical. Tom slowly turned to her, his eyes shining with new hope. "Would you do that for me?" "I don't want to be a burden," he said, insecurity evident in his voice. "It would never be a burden, Tom. Everyone deserves a second chance, and I want to help," she stated, her determination clear. "You are a light in the midst of so much darkness," he murmured, with a sincerity that touched Emma deeply. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the joy that came from caring. It was what made her feel alive. The conversation flowed naturally, moving from past memories to future dreams. Tom began to open up more about his life, revealing fragments of a story that Emma knew was complex and full of challenges. He talked about his family, how he had lost everything, and what it meant to be on the streets. Each word felt like a weight being lifted from her shoulders, and Emma listened intently, as if each detail was a vital piece of the puzzle that was Tom's life. I had a wife, a daughter, but everything fell apart when I lost my job. Then everything we built fell apart, he said, his voice now trembling. Emma felt a lump in her throat when she heard that. How could anyone lose so much in such a short time? That's so sad, Tom, but you still have a chance to start over. It's possible, she insisted, trying to encourage him. This is where everything can change. He looked into her eyes, and Emma could see the internal struggle he was having. Do you really believe that? He questioned, almost as if he was seeking confirmation that there was still hope. Yes, I do, and I will be here to help you find that path, Emma replied, firmly. The atmosphere in the diner was welcoming, but the conversation that took place between them seemed to have a weight that transcended the environment. As the diners continued to eat and laugh, Emma and Tom were in a world apart, a space where pain and hope intertwined. You know, I've always dreamed of having my own coffee shop, Emma said, changing the focus of the conversation a little. A place where people can feel welcome, like you do here. That's beautiful, Emma. You deserve this. And who knows, maybe I can help you one day when I'm back on my feet, Tom replied, a gleam of determination beginning to appear in his eyes. That would be amazing. We can do this together, Emma exclaimed, a smile lighting up her face. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and for a brief moment, Tom felt that maybe, just maybe, the future was brighter than he imagined. Time passed quickly as they continued to talk, and the rain outside fell harder and harder. Emma decided that, even with Tom's difficulties, she would commit to helping him. The world could be harsh, but she was willing to be a bridge to a new beginning. Tom, you're not alone. I promise I'll do my best to give you another chance, she finished, as she went down to wait on another table. Her determination rang in the air, and Tom, for a moment, felt like he could truly dream again. As the sun set behind Chicago's skyscrapers, the city began to illuminate with the vibrant lights of businesses and cars rushing by. Emma's diner, called Café de Esperanza, was still pulsing with the energy of people arriving for a late dinner. Emma, with her apron stained with tomato sauce, ran from one place to the other, always with a smile on her face. She loved the place, but her heart was worried about Tom, the homeless man who had become a constant presence in her life. In the days following their first meeting, Emma decided she couldn't just ignore Tom's reality. At every turn, she tried to think of ways to help him. One of those days, while preparing an extra portion of fries, an idea popped into his mind. She could bring him extra food, something that would warm him and make him feel less lonely. So each day, she saved a little of what was left for him. That afternoon, as the smell of fresh coffee filled the air, Emma spotted Tom sitting at his usual table, his gaze distant. He seemed lost in thought, with his unshaven face and threadbare clothes. Deciding to do something special, she approached him with a warm smile. "Hi, Tom. How are you today?" Emma asked, placing a cup of coffee in front of her. Tom looked at her, his tired eyes softening as he looked at the young woman. "Hi, Emma. I'm surviving. And you?" Same routine as always," Emma replied, making a face. "But today I brought you something special." She pulled a bag of chips and a sandwich out of a bag. "I hope you like it." Tom looked at the food, surprised. "You didn't have to do that," he murmured, gratitude evident in his tone. "But I wanted to. Food always makes the day feel a little better, doesn't it?" Emma said, sitting across from him. "And by the way, I would like to know more about you. How did you get here, Tom?" With a deep sigh, Tom began to tell his story. "Well, I had a job in a factory. He worked hard and had a family, a son and a wife. But life is unpredictable, you know? One day, an accident occurred at the factory and I was unfairly fired. Over time, my wife couldn't handle the pressure and decided to leave. My son, well, he stayed with her. Since then, I haven't been able to get back on my feet." Emma felt her heart sink when she heard the pain in his voice. "I'm so sorry, Tom. I can't imagine the pain you went through. It's complicated," he continued, looking at the table. "It was more than just losing a job. It was losing everything. But sometimes we find a reason to move forward, even in the worst situations. Do you still have dreams, Tom? Emma asked, curious. Dreams? I'm not sure they still exist, he replied, a sad smile on his lips. But sometimes, I catch myself thinking about how good it would be to draw again. I used to be an artist, you know? An artist, Emma exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with interest. Why didn't you tell me before? I would love to see your drawings. Tom hesitated, as if struggling with his own memories. I haven't drawn in years. Paper and pencils are a luxury I can no longer afford. But you should. I'm sure you still have talent, Emma insisted. If you want, I can bring you some materials. Art can be a way to express everything you feel. Tom looked at her, a mix of hope and skepticism in his gaze. Would you do that for me? Of course. And you can show me what you did when you feel ready? Emma smiled, encouraging him. The atmosphere between the two became lighter, and a small smile appeared on Tom's face. They spent some time talking, and Emma noticed how each word they exchanged seemed to create an invisible bond between them. She felt that, in some way, she was discovering a world that she had never known before. The next day, while Emma was on her break, she spotted Tom outside the diner. He was talking to a group of people who seemed worried. Emma approached discreetly, intrigued by the scene. Tom gestured, and his tone sounded firmer than she had ever heard it. You can't just ignore this, Tom, a woman said, her voice full of concern. I know, but I can't get any more involved than I already am, Tom replied, his expression tense. Emma frowned, feeling a pang of worry. What would be happening? He seemed to be involved in something deeper than she had imagined. Curious, she decided to wait a little longer to hear more of the conversation, but soon realized that she couldn't stay there without introducing herself. Hi, Tom, Emma called, approaching. Everything is fine? Tom looked at her, his expression quickly changing to a smile. Hi, Emma. Okay, I was just talking to some friends. Friends? Emma asked, looking at the group that was now watching her. People had expressions of concern and uncertainty. Yeah, just a few people I met out there, he replied. But Emma could sense there was something more. Do you need help, Tom? She asked, feeling the need to offer support. No, don't worry, he said quickly. But the hesitation in his voice didn't go unnoticed by Emma. She decided that she needed to be aware of this situation. Upon returning to work, Emma couldn't help but feel that there was something more to Tom's life that he hadn't yet shared. His heart sank at the thought of what could be happening. The connection she felt with him was strong, and she was willing to do whatever was necessary to help him. Meanwhile, a new customer, Mark, a successful businessman known for his authoritarian stance, entered the diner. He always made a point of sitting at a table that allowed him to observe everything around him. Emma noticed that, upon seeing Tom, Mark's expression became dark. He looked at Tom suspiciously, as if the homeless man was threatening his world of success and power. Emma, can you get me some coffee? Mark asked, his voice loud and commanding. Of course, I'll be right back, Emma replied, trying to remain calm. As she prepared the order, she couldn't help but notice the growing tension between Mark and Tom. The businessman seemed uncomfortable with Tom's presence, and it made her uneasy. After serving Mark, Emma decided to confront him. You seem troubled, Mark. What is happening? That man shouldn't be here. He's a risk. Look at him, Emma. He can't be trusted, Mark said, his voice full of contempt. He's just a man who's having a hard time, just like many others. We have no right to judge, Emma replied, trying to keep her voice calm. You shouldn't get involved with people like him, Emma. You have a future to preserve, Mark insisted, ignoring her plea. Emma felt frustration rising within her. Everyone deserves a second chance, Mark. You can't just write someone off because of their situation. Mark rolled his eyes, clearly uninterested. You are naive. The world is more complicated than you imagine. Don't get too involved, or you might get hurt. The two stared at each other for a moment, and Emma realized that the conversation was going nowhere. She withdrew, feeling more determined than ever to help Tom. The tension in the air seemed palpable, but she knew she couldn't give up on him. What she felt for Tom was deeper than just compassion. It was an unshakable belief in the capacity for redemption and change. Emma was having a busy day at the diner. The smell of fresh coffee wafted through the air, and the clinking of plates and cutlery filled the vibrant atmosphere. The young waitress moved quickly between tables, serving customers with a welcoming smile. However, her mind was far away, occupied with the image of Tom. Ever since she met him, she couldn't stop thinking about him and his story. It was then that Mark, a businessman who frequented the diner, approached the counter. Emma noticed him looking at Tom, who was sitting at a nearby table, critically. She felt a knot in her stomach. Mark was a successful person, but his attitude towards those less fortunate bothered her. She decided it was time to confront him. "Mark," Emma began, approaching him as he looked over the menu. "Don't you think it's time to stop looking at Tom like that? He's a person, not trash." Mark turned to Emma, a cynical smile on his lips. "He's homeless, Emma. You can't just ignore the fact that he's a waste of space in the city. You should care more about the people who really matter." "How can you say that?" Emma felt her voice tremble, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Tom has a story. He didn't choose to be on the street. Everyone deserves compassion, regardless of their situation." Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly dismissive. "Do you really believe that your solidarity will change something? He is an addict, a person who cannot help himself. Instead of wasting your time with him, you should be focused on your life." Emma felt a surge of anger and frustration. What if he was a friend of yours, or a member of your family? Would you want them to treat you like that? No one deserves to be treated like that. Mark laughed, but there was no humor in his laughter. "You have too big a heart, Emma. It won't get you anywhere." Emma pulled away, her heart racing. The conversation with Mark left her distressed, but also more determined to help Tom. In the following days, however, something changed. Tom didn't show up at the diner. Emma glanced at the door each time the bell rang, hoping to see him enter, but he didn't come. Worry grew inside her, and her mind filled with questions. One sunny day during her break, Emma decided she couldn't wait any longer. She put on a light coat and walked out into the busy streets, looking for any sign of Tom. She walked along the sidewalks, looking at the faces of the homeless people she met. He asked some people if they had seen Tom, but no one seemed to know where he was. "Did you see that man with the messy hair, in the brown jacket?" Emma asked a woman who was sitting on a bench. "That one? Oh, he hasn't been around for days," replied the woman with a sigh. "They said he had gotten into trouble with a group of young people in the area. I was warned to stay away from them." Emma felt butterflies in her stomach when she heard that. Trouble? What happened? "He was attacked, or so they say. I don't know much more," the woman replied, looking away. With a heavy heart, Emma continued her search. The sun was high, but the light didn't seem to reach his heart. She felt helpless and distressed, and the thought that Tom might be in danger tormented her. "Where are you, Tom?" she muttered to herself. Finally, as she crossed a corner, Emma saw a familiar figure leaning against a wall. Her heart raced. It was Tom, but he didn't look well. His eyes were tired and his clothes were even dirtier than before. He looked up as Emma approached, and she felt a wave of relief mixed with worry. "Tone!" she exclaimed, running up to him. "Where have you been? I was so worried." "Hi, Emma," he said, his voice hoarse and weak. I've been around. I just needed some time." Emma crouched down beside him and examined him closely. "Are you hurt? What happened?" Tom hesitated before answering. I had a problem with some young people. They didn't like me here and, well, you know how it is. I'm not welcome in a lot of places." Emma's indignation grew. "They attacked you? That's unacceptable. You need help, Tom. Let me help you find a shelter, a safe place." "You don't have to worry about me," Tom murmured, but Emma could see the pain in his eyes. He was fighting something much bigger than himself. "I do worry. You can't be like this alone. You don't deserve this," Emma insisted, her voice brimming with emotion. "Come on. I'm going to take you somewhere where you can be safe. I'm not leaving you here." Tom looked at her, gratitude mixed with sadness in his eyes. Emma, I don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden, Tom. You're my friend. And friends help each other, Emma replied, taking his hand and holding it tightly. Let's find shelter. You don't have to go through this alone. In a gesture of vulnerability, Tom nodded slowly, as if finally allowing himself to accept the help. All right, I'll go with you. Emma helped Tom to his feet, and together they began to walk through the streets. The sun was setting, turning the sky orange and pink, but the weight on Emma's shoulders felt heavier than ever. She knew Tom's fight was far from over, but she was determined to help him find a way. I'm not giving up on you, Tom, she declared, looking at him sternly. We will get through this together. Tom looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, a faint smile appeared on his lips. Thanks, Emma. I don't know how you do it, but you always know how to make me feel a little better. It's because I believe in you, Emma replied, confidently, as they walked into an uncertain future, but together. Emma walked the streets of Chicago, her heart racing but determined. The day was clear, and the sun was shining brightly, but she felt that the true light was in the hope she had for Tom. After a few difficult days, she was about to take him to the support center she had discovered, a place that promised help him get back on his feet. Upon arriving at the diner, she waved to the regulars and went straight to the kitchen, where she prepared a special snack for Tom. She knew he needed more than food. He needed to feel like someone really cared. As lunchtime approached, Emma looked out the window and, seeing Tom approaching, her heart warmed. His face was a little cleaner than before, but he was still wearing his worn-out clothes. Emma ran to greet him with a wide smile. Hi, Tom. How are you feeling today? She asked, holding a plate with a sandwich and a cup of coffee. Better, Emma. Better, Tom replied, accepting the snack gratefully. I've been thinking about what you said, about that shelter. I'm ready to try. Great. After my shift, we'll go over there. They have a support program that can help you find a place to stay and even get a job, Emma said, full of enthusiasm. Tom smiled, but his expression carried a weight of uncertainty. What if it doesn't work out? What if I don't fit in there? You'll fit in, Tom. We all need a second chance, and you deserve it. Let's go together. You're not alone, Emma encouraged, lightly touching his arm. As they talked, the movement in the diner increased, and Emma quickly walked away to serve other customers. However, her thoughts remained with Tom. After the diner closed, Emma and Tom headed to the support center. On the way, Emma tried to keep the conversation light. Do you remember the first time you came to the diner? I almost spilled the coffee on you, she laughed, remembering his surprised expression. Yes, it was a disaster, but you treated me like I was a king. I'll never forget that, Tom replied, his gaze lighting up with the memory. When they arrived at the center, Emma was impressed with the organization of the place. It was clean, welcoming, and full of people willing to help. Tom hesitated at the entrance, looking inside as if it were a stage he had no part in. Come on, Tom. I'm here with you, Emma said, placing her hand on his back, gently pushing him inside. A woman, with a warm smile, approached and greeted them. Welcome. My name is Linda, and I'm here to help. What are you looking for? I need help. I want to find shelter and maybe a job, Tom replied, his voice shaking. Of course. Let's start with registration and then we can talk about your options, Linda said, gesturing for them to head to a table. As Tom filled out the forms, Emma watched, feeling a surge of hope. She knew this was an important step for him. After a few minutes, Linda returned with a smile. Tom, you're a week away from getting shelter, and we have some job opportunities available. That's a great start. Tom looked at Emma, his eyes shining with excitement. You made this happen, Emma. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. I'm here for you, always, Emma replied, her heart full of joy. Over the next few days, Emma and Tom met almost every day. While Tom was at the center, he began sharing stories about his former life. He spoke nostalgically of a time when he was a talented artist, creating sculptures and paintings that expressed his worldview. I used to have gallery shows, Tom once commented as they walked through the park. People praised my work, but everything fell apart so quickly. Emma stopped and looked at him, intrigued. Why did you stop creating? You should get back to it. I'm sure you still have a lot to offer. I don't know if I'm still an artist. Life on the street made me forget who I was, Tom replied, his voice thick with despondency. You're still an artist, Tom. What you've been through only adds depth to your work. I'd love to see your works, Emma said, sincerely. Would you like to see what I've done? I have some things packed away. Tom hesitated, but Emma's excitement seemed contagious. Of course. I want to see everything, Emma exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. We can organize an exhibition. Could help you reconnect with your art. Tom was surprised by the idea. An exhibition? I don't know if I'm ready for that. You can start small. Let's do a presentation for some friends and see how they react. You never know, it might be just what you need to get back to creating, Emma encouraged. With Emma's support, Tom felt more motivated. They started working on the idea for the exhibition, and Emma helped Tom search for his works. He had some paintings and sculptures stored in a small storage room, and upon seeing them, Emma was impressed by his talent. The vibrant colors and expressive shapes reflected the struggle and beauty of the life Tom had lived. They're beautiful, Tom. You really have a gift, Emma said, admiring each piece. Thanks, Emma. I thought I'd never see that again, Tom replied, his eyes welling up. As they were planning the exhibition, a shadow approached. Mark, the businessman who had looked suspiciously at Tom in the diner, entered the room. He was an imposing figure, and his gaze left no room for doubt. What are you doing here, Emma? He asked, his voice thick with disdain. We're organizing an art show. Tom is an amazing artist, you should see it, Emma replied, trying to stay calm. An artist? Please, Emma. This guy is homeless. He has nothing to offer, Mark said with a sarcastic smile. Tom felt butterflies in his stomach, but Emma didn't let it shake him. Everyone deserves a chance, Mark. You can't just write someone off for their current situation. I'm just a realist. Don't get carried away by illusions. This art project isn't going anywhere, Mark snapped, crossing his arms. Emma took a deep breath, determined not to give in. If you can't see the value in people, then maybe the problem is you, not Tom. Mark laughed, but Emma was determined. You'll be amazed at what Tom can do. This is just the beginning. Upon leaving the place, Emma looked at Tom, who was visibly shaken by Mark's words. Don't pay attention to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. What matters is that you're getting back on your feet. I know, but it's hard not to let these things get to me, Tom replied, his voice low. Yes, but you have to remember who you really are. And I'm here to help you rediscover that, Emma said, placing a hand on her shoulder. As the days went by, Emma and Tom continued to work together, and the idea for the exhibition began to take shape. Emma was excited about the possibility of showcasing Tom's work to the community and, more importantly, helping Tom connect with his true self again. She knew that despite the challenges, every small victory counted, and that Tom's journey was just beginning. Tom's exhibition was a real success, with the walls of the small gallery adorned by his works, a vibrant mix of colors and emotions. The local community gathered around a talent that had been forgotten, but now shone with all its intensity. Emma, with a radiant smile, circulated among the guests, feeling fulfilled with each compliment she heard about Tom's creations. He, in turn, was visibly moved. The man who used to look at life with suspicion now saw admiration reflected in the faces of people he had never met. Look, Tom, that painting over there is getting so much attention, Emma exclaimed, pointing to a screen that depicted a springtime park scene, full of flowers and children playing. Tom, with a sparkle in his eyes, approached the work. That was one of my favorites. I painted it at a time when I still believed anything was possible, he said, his voice shaking with emotion. It's amazing to see that other people can feel this too. You deserve all this recognition, Emma replied, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. And I'm so proud of you. As the night progressed, chatter and laughter filled the space. But Tom's happiness was abruptly interrupted when one of the exhibition organizers approached him with an envelope in hand. The man's face was serious, and it made Emma's heart race. "Tom, you got this," he said, handing over the envelope. Tom looked at the envelope, his expression instantly changing from joy to concern. "What is that?" he muttered, opening it with shaking hands. Emma approached, trying to see what was written. "It's a letter," he began, his voice trailing off. "It's addressed to me." "Read it," Emma prompted, taking his hand, which was shaking. Tom took a deep breath and began reading aloud, his words filled with tension. "Tom, you know what you did. Don't think you can escape. I'm watching you. If you don't want your past to come up again, stay away from what doesn't belong to you." Silence settled around them. The echo of Tom's voice seemed to resonate in Emma's mind, as the reality of the situation set in. "What does that mean, Tom? What past?" she asked, her heart clenching. Tom closed his eyes for a moment, as if trying to find the right words. I had a past that I'm not proud of. I made mistakes, Emma. Mistakes that ended my life. You can tell me. I'm here to help you," Emma insisted, her voice full of concern. "It was a question of trust and money. I participated in a scheme that seemed harmless at first, but ended up becoming something much bigger than I expected. I was manipulated by people who called themselves friends. When it all came to a head, I lost everything. My job, my family, and eventually control of my life," Tom explained, the pain visible in his eyes. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "You're not alone, Tom. I want you to know it's okay. We all make mistakes. The important thing is what you do now. You're trying to recover, and that's what really matters. But what if that past comes back to haunt me? What if these people who threaten me find a way to take me down again?" The anguish in Tom's voice was palpable. "So we will face them together. I'm not going to let you face this alone," Emma stated, her determination growing. "Let's find out who is behind this and stop this threat before it becomes a real problem." Tom looked at her, gratitude mixed with fear in his gaze. "You are an incredible person, Emma. I don't know what I did to deserve someone like you by my side." She smiled, trying to ease the tension. "You don't have to do anything, Tom. You're already an inspiration to me. Now, let's focus on how we can solve this." Their conversation was interrupted by a group of people approaching, praising Tom's works and asking about the meaning behind one of his paintings. Emma realized that, despite the tense moment, life continued around them. Tom, engaged in the interactions and receiving the compliments, seemed to start to loosen up again, but Emma knew that the shadow of the letter still loomed over them. That night, as she helped dismantle the exhibit, Emma couldn't shake the thoughts of what Tom had revealed. He had made choices that resulted in a dark past, but he was still fighting for a better future. She felt like she needed to help him face this dark part of his life, but she wasn't sure how. "Tom," she began, as she organized the remaining works, "have you ever thought about seeking legal help? Anyone who can guide you on how to deal with these threats. I'm not sure I can trust anyone else. I've already been cheated on once," Tom replied, his voice thick with distrust. "I understand, but we can't let fear paralyze us. If you don't feel comfortable, I can come with you," Emma offered, trying to show him that she wasn't alone. "Would you really do that for me?" Tom asked, incredulity in his tone. "Of course. You cared for me when I was feeling most vulnerable. Now it's my turn to take care of you," Emma declared firmly, feeling the connection between them strengthen even more. Tom looked into her eyes, seeking sincerity. "You are a light in the darkness, Emma. I don't know what I would do without you. So let's prepare for whatever comes next. We will find out who is behind this game and make sure you have the chance to get back on your feet once and for all," Emma promised, feeling a surge of determination. "Thank you, Emma, for everything," Tom said with a shy but genuine smile. He knew that, despite the challenges that would come, he had someone by his side willing to fight for his redemption, and that, in itself, was a significant step towards a future he was now beginning to believe might be possible. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden light over the city. Emma and Tom were on their way to Mark's office, an environment that Emma knew well, but which now seemed fraught with tension and uncertainty. Tom walked beside her, his gaze fixed on the ground, as if he carried the entire weight of the world on his shoulders. After everything they had been through, Emma knew that this moment was crucial for Tom's future and for the justice he so deserved. "Are you ready for this?" Emma asked, her voice soft but firm. She stopped and looked into Tom's eyes, trying to convey confidence. "We're in this together." Tom took a deep breath, trying to find the courage that was escaping him. "I don't know if I am. I'm so used to being the victim that having to confront Mark is scary." He hesitated, a shadow of doubt crossing his face. "What if he tries to discredit me again?" "He can't do that. This time we have the truth on our side." Emma squeezed Tom's hand, trying to give him strength. "Remember what you told me about the evidence you have. You are no longer a victim, Tom. You are a survivor." With those words, Tom raised his head and nodded, a spark of determination lighting his gaze. They continued walking and soon arrived at the building where Mark had his office. The environment was imposing, but Emma felt strangely small compared to the grandeur of the place. She knew that inside was the man who destroyed Tom's life, and adrenaline coursed through her veins. When they entered, they were greeted by a receptionist who looked at them suspiciously. "Who do you have a meeting with?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. "It's up to Mark. Tell him Emma and Tom are here," Emma replied, trying to sound confident. The receptionist hesitated, but then picked up the phone and dialed. After a few minutes, she waved them in. Mark's office was modern and austere, decorated with awards and photos that testified to his success. He was sitting behind a huge desk, and upon seeing them enter, a disturbed smile spread across his face. "Emma, what a surprise. And you brought Tom." He hesitated, as if mentioning the name was an effort. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk, Mark," Emma said, keeping her voice steady. "About what happened in the past and how you destroyed Tom's life." Mark leaned back in his chair, trying to maintain his indifferent posture. "I don't know what you're talking about. Tom here is a former fraudster. He himself admitted that he was involved in illicit activities." "That's a lie," Tom exclaimed, his voice now stronger than ever. "I was manipulated by you. You used me as a scapegoat to cover up your own fraud." Mark laughed, a scornful laugh that echoed off the office walls. "And who will believe you, Tom? You are homeless, a worthless man. Your word against mine." He leaned forward, his gaze threatening. "You should know that losers always end up at the bottom." Emma felt anger rising within her, but took a moment to calm down. "You can try to belittle Tom, but the truth is that he has evidence that exonerates him. And you know it, Mark. That's why you're so nervous." Mark, realizing the gravity of the situation, began to become more agitated. "Evidence? What evidence? You can't just come in here and make baseless accusations." Tom straightened up, his gaze now determined. "I have documents and records that prove you were behind everything. These documents were kept as insurance. Now, it is time for the truth to be revealed." Mark, realizing the situation was turning against him, began to shut down. "Look, you don't have to do this. We can resolve this in a more civilized way." Emma interrupted, holding up the cell phone she had brought. "No, Mark, you can't escape this. I'm recording this conversation. You will be exposed." Mark's expression instantly changed, revealing a man who was becoming increasingly desperate. "Emma, you don't know what you're doing. You can't just—" "I can and I will," Emma stated, her voice firm. "You will pay for what you did, and Tom will receive the justice he deserves." Mark looked at Tom, and a gleam of anger and despair lit up in his eyes. "You won't achieve anything, Tom. No one will believe you. You are a failure." "I am no longer a failure," Tom declared, his voice echoing in the office. "I am a survivor and I will fight for my truth. And you will be held responsible for everything you did." The confrontation intensified, and Emma began recording the conversation, capturing every word. Mark, realizing his game was about to be over, tried to manipulate the situation. "I can make you disappear, Tom. You know that's not an empty threat. You can't bully me anymore, Tom said, his voice firm. Today is the day the truth comes out. With the recording underway, Emma did not hesitate to call the police. Explaining the situation and asking them to come immediately, she felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Time seemed to pass slowly as they waited, the tension in the air palpable. Finally, the police sirens sounded in the distance, and Mark began to panic. He looked at Emma and Tom, his eyes filled with anger and fear. "This isn't going to end well for you guys," he said, his voice shaking. "We're not afraid of you, Mark," Emma replied, her voice full of conviction. "Justice is on the way." When the police arrived, the situation was quickly clarified. Emma showed the recording and documents that Tom had saved, and the truth began to unravel like a loose thread. Mark was taken into custody, and the look of relief on Tom's face was unmistakable. "You did it, Emma," Tom said, tears of gratitude in his eyes. "You gave me the strength to fight." "You did it, Tom," Emma replied, hugging him. "You are stronger than you know, and now you can start again." With Mark's arrest, Tom was finally able to free himself from his past. He began to recover, helping others overcome their difficulties, transforming his pain into empathy. Emma and Tom became inseparable friends, and together, they showed that true wealth comes from love and compassion. The city that once seemed cold and indifferent now pulsed with renewed hope for a bright future where everyone could find redemption.